how they support the text. And I think we saved the best for last, in my opinion. This is going to focus on graphs. Yesterday we talked about tables and charts, which are different from graphs, as you will see. I have a book right here that some of you may have read, some of you may not have read, about medical robots and how they are assisting doctors in completing surgeries at a quicker rate so that people can have less recuperation time. This section of the book is about lifelike medical robots in the future. So if we look at this whole page, I can see in the photo that the girl is having some dental work done, and the caption, and one of the cool things you probably didn't notice is that this isn't an actual human. The woman who's doing the dental work on the robot is a real person, but she's a dental student. With medical robots, dental students could practice on the robots before they practice on real people to gain the skills they need to become good doctors, dental workers, and so on. So this is going to be the chart in the bottom right corner that talks about how robotic surgeries are on the rise. And what I'm going to do is zoom in on this a little bit more for you to see. It says below the heading that the number of robotic surgeries performed around the world has grown over the years. And if you look in 2000, there were less than 1,000 that were performed that year, but then through 2014, it grew to about almost 600,000. So I can infer from this that the number of that robotic surgeries are going to continue to grow. What I want to say is exponentially, which means it's just going to keep growing more and more. You can see that from 2008 to 2010 to 2012, the amount of robot surgeries actually almost doubled too. So what I'm trying to do as a reader is understand the information the graph is teaching me, but also infer more about, well, will robot surgeries actually continue to increase? Based on the trend of the bar graphs, it will grow quite a bit. Sorry, my mouse was going a little crazy there. So the information the graph is giving me is telling me that robotic surgeries are becoming more popular, and the purpose of this graph is to inform me about how robotic surgeries have, in the 14 years that this information was showing us, that they grew from less than 1,000 to almost 550,000. Another thought that I had was, well, why would the author put this information in a graph instead of in paragraph form? Well, this is giving me a visual image so I can compare and understand that robotic surgeries have grown a lot, and I don't have to read all that information in paragraph form, because then it would be harder for me to visualize this the way that I want to. So using a graph, like a bar graph right here, gives me a visual image so I can compare data faster, more efficiently, and not just have to read the information. And I'm going to show you another graph here that's from a book from Epic called Life Science Through Infographics. When I look at this graph, it says that the red list, the International Union of Conservation of Nature's UCN, works to protect endangered species. Its red list of threatened species is the world's best record of endangered plants and animals. I didn't think of plants as being endangered, but that makes sense. The IUCN is still gathering complete info on insects and other major categories, but their research paints a vivid picture. It's not telling me what the research is going to paint a picture of, but I have to infer that from this graph. Then it says percentage of species that are threatened. All right, so when I'm looking at this data, I can see, I understand that I have 5 categories: mammals, amphibians, birds, conifers, which you can see there's the graphic of the tree, and then sharks and rays. I thought it was interesting that the author decided to put animals and one type of tree on this graph. I thought that that would be separate, but that was an interesting way to show us some data about the plant life as well. What I can learn from this graph is that amphibians are the species that are the most threatened, and sharks and rays are the second most likely to be threatened, but birds are the least likely species that would be threatened on the red list. That's the information the graph is giving me that I can just take right from it. The purpose of this graph is for me to compare the different species that are threatened and to understand that there are a lot of species that are threatened because of probably things with global warming, hunting, a lot of other reasons as well. Then the question that I had in the last graph was too, why would this information be put in a graph instead of in a paragraph form? Well, this is allowing me to, again, compare the data and understand which species has the greatest which species has the greatest endangerment and is threatened the most. So it's showing me that we have a lot of work to do in our world so we protect our endangered plants and animals. So this information, if it was just written in paragraph form, I don't think would be as impactful or as easy for me to understand. Charts and graphs and tables give information to us in a way that makes it easier for us to understand, whether it's in a bar graph form that's horizontally, a line plot, a pie chart. You can see that I had a vertical bar graph right here. So it just depends on how the author wants you to compare it, but I appreciated that the author here put graphics so I would know, okay, a rhino would be a mammal, a frog would be an amphibian, but conifers might be a new vocabulary term to you. What I want you to remember is that graphs organize and help us compare information in a visual way. So it's not always written in an expository nonfiction text as a paragraph